There's been a lot of news going around right now about how the video game market is finally crashing. Yes, finally. The hardware sales have been down to the lowest around Black Friday since 1995. And, guess what? Hardware is very, very expensive now. Switch 2 is one of the cheapest options at $450. I think a Steam Deck with the lowest model might be like in the high 300s, but either way, that it's pretty expensive since back in the day. I don't know if you can remember back in the day, GameCubes being $100 on sale at Walmart. We're very far from that. And I've been saying on this channel multiple times that this has left a massive hole in the market for lower end video game hardware. I know like retro gaming, there's becoming very popular. People buying older systems, like may as well just buy like a Wii and a bundle and a bunch of games for $100 or a Nintendo 64. I've been very excited about the Analog 3D. It was like $250, and that's been so much fun compared to a bunch of modern stuff. Got these like Anbernic retro handhelds, $50. This is like a no brainer deal compared to like what $800 Xbox Series S. It's ridiculous. Uh, this is probably a video for another time, but lately I found myself micro gaming Mario Kart Super Circuit on the Game Boy Advance. And it's really funny because I was just thinking, like, I have a Nintendo Switch online subscription service. I have a Nintendo Switch 2. I have a Nintendo Switch Lite. I have access to play this game on those platforms. Yet I'm choosing to play on this Ambernic device. And like for me personally, it's a form factor problem. Like it's just so much easier for me to store this little guy in a drawer, take it out, play the game. And if I have to even turn it off in the middle of it and not even finish like my 4 course like Grand Prix, I could just turn it off, throw it back in the drawer, and be done. The form factor of the Switch and the Switch 2 are just so much bigger that it just adds this extra friction to it. And I think that really just kills the art of just handheld gaming for me. I've been talking about this for a while. And I think that there's like this kill two birds with one stone kind of thing that I'm going to use Nintendo as the example throughout this video. Sony and Xbox, they could do it. Another company could join in on this to help fill this hole that's there in the market. I just don't think they're going to do it, just with the rumors and everything, with the PS6 really trying to compete with the Switch 2, and same with the Xbox. Like they're still trying to focus on competing with the Switch in the hybrid system, where Nintendo's already perfected that. So I think they're best positioned for this, and the tools they have worked with, I think, would be really awesome. And I know, like, just I don't know if this is even realistic, but hear me out. I think it's time for Nintendo to bring back the DS. Now, the way I would do it is actually make it kind of like a Switch DS, make it part of the Switch family systems. But how do you do this, you might ask? Nintendo's not really a stranger to having multiple hardwares out there. They've always been console handheld, console handheld. But even in the Switch era, there were those years where they had the NES Classic and the Super NES Classic. The Nintendo Switch, or the Nintendo DS, the 3DS, is just the perfect handheld device. It truly is. And I think what would be really cool is, for $150, let's just say they make a digital only version of the DS. Not really the DS per se, but the form factor is the main focus here, is the form factor of the DS. And let's start out with, let's say it's digital only, just to start out with, for argument's sake. And this thing pretty much is a Nintendo Switch Online system where it can connect to Nintendo Switch Online, play NES, Super NES, N64, Genesis, Game Boy games, all of that on this device to go. So for $150, yeah, you pretty much have to pay for the subscription service to play those games. And that would kind of be like Nintendo's like reasoning to do something like this. Like, here's a device with a really ultra portable form factor, and you can connect to Nintendo Switch Online and play all these games. Had that existed, I'd probably actually be playing Mario Kart Super Circuit on my official hardware versus something like the Anbernic device. But let's not stop there. This would be the perfect device, and it would solve all the problems of getting DS and 3DS on the Nintendo Switch Online service. So, if you're like me and you already have Nintendo Switch Online, how do you do DS and 3DS? It's pretty much the age-old problem is how they're going to handle this. I know Castlevania, they have like a 3-pack collection of DS games on Nintendo Switch, and they kind of have this like 2 square like version where like the big screen's like your main screen, but then like the small screen is like that second screen which has your map and stuff. I don't love it. It works. I don't love it. And how do you handle touchscreen games with that, right? Having a device like this where like this is where you can play maybe exclusively play DS and 3DS games. I think that kind of solves their problem. They can add those to the Nintendo Switch Online service, and now you can play all Nintendo Switch Online here. I don't know if GameCube games is a limitation to the Switch 2 and they're not on Switch 1 because of power, or if that's just because of just like trying to sell Switch 2 consoles and they made it exclusive. Having GameCube would be cool here too, but what I'm trying to say is having exclusive Nintendo Switch Online services to a specific device is already no stranger to Nintendo. You can only play GameCube on the Switch 2, not the Switch 1. So this would be no different, just at like, at the start of like a high level type of like idea. So yeah, if they could do that for 150 bucks and get us DS and 3DS games on Virtual Console or Nintendo Switch Online, I think that's a cool device already. I think you can take this a step further and actually get access to the Nintendo eShop. A game like Balatro or Slay the Spire or Stardew Valley, I don't think should have any problem running on such a device, on such a handheld device. I don't know why you should really. In fact, I think they could thrive on such a device playing Stardew Valley. So, very much like Steam, where there's like Steam Deck capable or Steam Deck verified games. I don't know why they couldn't go through the eShop and have Switch DS verified games. So that opens up the entire, at least Switch 1 library. Maybe not Switch 2. Maybe Switch 2 with smaller games, but probably not. But Switch 1 library is connected to the same eShop. If this is, let's say, a digital only device, that would encourage more digital game sales. And even if it's a third party sale that's sold on the store, that's a benefit for Nintendo. And, if you already have a large Nintendo Switch digital library like myself, this would just be another place to access those games. So I think, that'd be a huge benefit. But at the same time, what I think would be very exciting is, if it's connected to the eShop, why not have like develop games? Because already with Switch 1 and Switch 2, because of the combination between handheld and hybrid, I think a lot of gamers out there, at least the noisy, loud minority on the internet, I think they can, they confuse a game that every Switch 2 game basically needs to be console quality and compare to like the PS5. If it's anything less than like a PS5 comparison, it's garbage. But you see a game like Mario vs. Donkey Kong, the remake of that is clearly a handheld game. That would clearly have been released on like, on the DS or something. And I think if they made like games specifically targeting this Switch DS, where it's like, designed for the Switch DS or Switch DS optimized, I think that would like really like help set the expectations for like gamers and consumers. Like, oh, this game is built for the Nintendo Switch DS. Now, because of that, I don't think that like that means that they can't be sold and played on a Switch 1 or a Nintendo Switch 2. I think that just helps expectations. Like Mario and Luigi Brothership, the Princess Peach Showtime. These games could probably run on a smaller device like that, but then also play on Switch 2. And then maybe that could just set people's expectations. Like, oh, this is a smaller game. It's made and designed for the Switch DS, the $150 console. I can play it on the Switch 2. It's on the same eShop. I could buy it and play it there. But it's designed for this console, so like of course it's gonna not be a PS5 comparative experience. And so I think that's really cool because I'm playing Mario Kart Super Circuit, and this is scratching an itch that Mario Kart World isn't. I like Mario Kart World for what it is. I'll defend it for what it is, but it also isn't what it is. It's not this great just like game to pick up and casually do some races. And Mario Kart Super Circuit's pretty deep, and it's challenging, and it has this like really complex ranking system. And I don't think like when they combined the handheld and console division onto one platform, I don't think that like with the existence of the Mario Kart World for the next 8 to 10 years, I don't think that really limits that they couldn't make another Mario Kart game that's more in line with Mario Kart Super Circuit, that's in line with Mario Kart DS. That's a smaller experience. But it might be confusing if they just put it on Switch 2. People be like, is this Mario Kart like 10 like or 11? Like what is this? But if it's like this is built up and designed for the Nintendo Switch DS, I think that makes it like just way more, maybe easier to understand, or maybe more justifiable that you can have these smaller games. And yeah, you don't even need to buy this thing. You can still buy it and play it on Switch too. But I feel like maybe it would be like, I don't know if it's less confusing or more just like justifiable that, oh, you don't even need to buy the $450 Nintendo Switch 2. And you want to play Mario Kart, you can buy the $150 DS console, Nintendo Switch DS, and here's a brand new Mario Kart for you too. If you have Switch 2, then that library is going to port over and you can play that new tiny Mario Kart on Nintendo Switch 2. But then you can also get the premium Mario Kart World. I think that's really cool. Now, I don't know if $150 is like too cheap. Like, that'd be the price point to really target for. I mean, me myself, if they had something like that, I'd probably buy two of them, one for home and one to actually like take out with me, because the Nintendo DS fits way better in a bag. Like, I don't actually put like Game Boys in my pocket. I never had. They've always been in a bag. But Nintendo, even the Nintendo Switch One without a grip, if you put it in just like a carrying case, that's a lot of space in your bag, and it's honestly pretty annoying to travel with, or even go to the in-laws for just like a day trip. Like, I don't want to bring that thing. Nintendo DS is way smaller and way easier to bring around, just way more portable. And so, yeah, $150. Yeah, maybe it's digital only, but like maybe for like $250, if they can have a way to get even like a Nintendo Switch One like cartridge slot, or even better, let's make it like the DS and have one for like 3DS cartridge slots or DS cartridge slots, where yeah, you can play like the Nintendo Switch Online virtual console, or yeah, Nintendo Switch Online DS or 3DS games. But how pro consumer would that be if they had a cartridge slot for DS and 3DS games? This thing would sell so much, even at $250. But yeah, imagine if they had both the cartridge slots, one at the top and the bottom, like the original DS with DS and GBA games, where it had you can play Switch One physical cartridges and DS and 3DS cartridges on the bottom slot. That would be amazing. And yeah, sure, like I said before, probably not every single Switch One game would work on such a device. Pop the cart and maybe there'd be a message that says like this cart is incompatible. But like, come on, Nintendo, you don't need to like treat your customers like a bunch of idiots. Like, you know, we could figure that out. Like, just like give us that pro consumer thing, and like I think that'd be great. Just like with the eShop, like if you access like the eShop through this thing, can't they just put like a filter on it so you can only like browse games that you can actually buy and like play on this thing? Or just like maybe you just access the entire eShop, and if you buy a game, like there'll be like a warning message. Like if you're buying it from this device, it just says, "Hey, warning! Like it can't play on this device. Do you still want to buy this?" Something like that. Like, come on, like we can figure it out. Like, look at the retro handheld market with stuff like the Ambernick devices. Like, people are figuring it out. Like, and then like for your ultra casuals, just subscribe to Nintendo Switch Online. I think this thing would sell a bunch of hardware units at being the lower price point. You would sell subscription services with Nintendo Switch Online. Even still, it could be finally a good segue for like to put like just normal Nintendo Switch One games on like kind of like a Game Pass platform, like Mario Odyssey. That thing's never gone down in deep price, but put it on Nintendo Switch Online so these players, ultra casual players who buy this, give it more reason to subscribe to Nintendo Switch Online. Of course, with their drip-free method, that's something they wouldn't have to do for a very long time after they exhaust DS and 3DS. But you get what I'm saying. So yeah, maybe if you put those physical cartridge slots in for $250, I think this thing would be incredible. And it hits the price point. It hits the form factor for handheld gaming. Nintendo could do something just very Nintendo and bring back Picto's chat, give it some online features, give it Street Pass, get people out and carrying their devices outside again. Like, I know, like deep Nintendo fanboys would love that kind of stuff. Um, Again, everything I'm saying here could probably work with like a PSP3, when you like factor in like uh PS1 classics and PS2 classics, PSP games. I think the vision's way clearer for Nintendo, and just Nintendo already has like the perfected hybrid console where like PlayStation and Xbox are actively trying to compete against that. So Nintendo, like, where do you go from the Switch to? I think having that second SKU at a lower price point, I think that could be incredibly smart right now, and I think it'd be a lot of fun. And just like with like the virtual console, or I keep saying virtual console, but Nintendo Switch Online with the DS and 3DS, I think that solves that problem way better than like having it on the screen. Like, yeah, maybe they do that for like if you're playing it on a Switch 2 where you have to have your two squares on the screen. But I think it'd be way more fun and enjoyable on an actual clamshell 3DS device. And look at like the emulation scene with, I hope I'm pronouncing this right, the Ion Thor. That thing's like $300 to $400, and that thing is a DS clamshell device, and it can emulate games up to like the 360, PS3, Nintendo Switch. Like I think, and yeah, that's price here. I think for the problem that this thing is going to be solving, I don't think you can go that high in terms of price point. But like, so yeah, it might not be able to play like maybe Switch games, but like when I say Switch games, I mean maybe like Mario Odyssey, or Breath of the Wild, but maybe it can play Switch games in the terms of like Stardew Valley and Balatro. So I think it should have access to the eShop. But I don't know. This is just something I've been thinking about because it's like I have a Nintendo Switch Lite, I have a Switch One, a Switch Two, and I pay for a Nintendo Switch Online, and I have access to Mario Kart Super Circuit on the Game Boy Advance. Yet I'm still choosing to play it on unofficial hardware because it's a form factor problem. Like I have all the ability to do that. It's a form factor problem. It's a friction problem. It's way easier for me to store this in my desk drawer than it is to take out like the Switch 2, and I need the grip to make it like comfortable because it's such a big console. And yeah, if they had like a DS, which is I think just like the perfect handheld, whether it's digital only, I think it'd be super pro consumer. If they have cartridge slots, whether it's just a Switch One cartridge slot, or man, it would be a dream come true to have that DS 3DS cartridge slot, because man, that would be fun. Um, yeah, I don't know. And then like just like I think like moving forward, they can make other games, like make the smaller games, still sell them on the Switch too. But I think it would just like make more sense in some cases, that it's built for the ground up there, and just like the idea of like setting people's expectations, like, oh, this is a smaller Mario game. Uh, it's made for the Switch DS. I can buy it and play on the Switch too. I don't need to buy this hardware. But like when I buy this game and realize it's like this tiny experience, it kind of makes more sense. Like why? Yeah, I don't know. I think it's a fun idea. I think that there's a hole in the market. I think that'd be great if Nintendo did something like this. Again, like I think like PlayStation or Xbox could do this too. Just the vision and the thought is way more fleshed out when it comes to Nintendo. What do you guys what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments. I'm sure this is wishful thinking. I'm sure this will never happen, but like yeah, it'd be great to have DS Virtual Console, or I keep saying it, Virtual Console, Nintendo Switch Online. I think it'd be great to have that. I just like still don't know how exactly they do it without maybe even screencasting the Switch 2 to the TV, which it doesn't seem like they did. And like 8 to 10 years seems like a long time to have to wait for like some kind of solution. I don't see them doing having like Switch or DS support on Switch 2 without selling an extra peripheral, a lot like the Virtual Boy, which like that's just like plastic shell. Yet they're doing it, and so I guess like it's not out of the question. But like at that point, if you're gonna sell another peripheral for the DS, like why not go this route and kind of make this like this like subscription service driver, this digital, like you get more digital sales. Like I think it could just be a way for like business wise, maybe it could be smart on paper for Nintendo. I don't know. A lot of it has with the prices going up, the components are going up with like hardware, so who knows if they can even hit these price points. It could be wishful thinking, but even if you take some of these features, like even if it was Nintendo Switch Online only, it could be a compelling device for like some people. Again, like I would be playing Nintendo's or Mario Kart Super Circuit on official hardware, but I'm not, because it's a friction problem. It's not a money problem. It's a friction problem, and there's nothing available offered by Nintendo to resolve that friction problem. But I know when it comes to the declining hardware sales right now and the crash going on with hardware sales, it is a money problem for a lot of people. And so there's a huge hole in the market. And I don't think that Nintendo is gonna like just drop another console, or PlayStation or Xbox. I don't think anybody's gonna be dropping a brand new console and like kind of like the Wii and the DS. Like I don't think we're going to be seeing like here's a standalone handheld console with its own games, and like you see them on their own on the shelves, and like there's this whole ecosystem for just physical games of like this brand new device. I think everything's going to be integrated at this point. And so something like this, like yeah, maybe like the DS Virtual Console, keep saying it, isn't going to be on Nintendo Switch 2, but the GameCube isn't on Nintendo Switch 1. So like they're no stranger to doing this already. And then like your subscription service, Nintendo Music, That's only on iPhone. That's not even Nintendo hardware, and you can't get the music app on a Nintendo Switch 2, which is crazy that they haven't released a little music app. Like, come on, it's just music. Like, what, you can't have an app that plays it on like the actual hardware. Like that one is a real head scratcher for me. But I don't know. They're doing all this stuff with iPhone and nothing on iPhone. Like I said, like the Mario Kart Tour on iPhone, they had a handheld Mario Kart on iPhone. It's not this like it doesn't even scratch the itch that the GBA Mario Kart Super Circuit, which might be like the worst Mario Kart game of like the whole franchise, it still doesn't scratch that itch. Like that full of gotcha, like it's no fun. Yeah, what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments. Like, subscribe. See you in the next video.